Good afternoon. Welcome to this Butch Alterman Memorial Webinar presented by the Brain Injury Association of America. Today's topic is finding support when your concussion symptoms persist. Before we begin, I want to note that all attendees are muted. If you have a question, you may type it in the control box question feature, and I will read it to our presenter at the end of this presentation. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, Allison Moore-Smith, who is a concussion survivor and now concussion activist, artist, public speaker, mentor, and facilitator of a monthly concussion moms support group. She lives with her family in Manchester by the Sea in Massachusetts. Welcome, Allison.
Well, thank you. Thrilled to be here. What an honor to be with a BIA USA. This is huge. And thank you all for being here with me. I'm delighted. I'm so happy you're here that you know. I didn't know during my concussion that it was a brain injury. So if you are here, you are way ahead of me. So I'm happy for you. Again, my name is Allison Moyer-Smith. I'm a concussion survivor. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm just moving my slide here. I'm also professionally, I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist for brides, women who have cold feet about getting married. I'm also an artist. And I do concussion activism through my art. My Instagram, my website is called Concussion Recovery Art. And this is how I get the word out about what we go through. I also do guerrilla concussion activism. On these note cards that I sell, you can see here on the bottom, I give a tiny, tiny piece of concussion advice. I also teach concussion-friendly Zoom art classes. I do them for the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina, of Ottawa Valley, Krempel's Brain Injury Center in New Hampshire, McGill University in Montreal, and for Concussion Network. But my concussion story starts, as they all do, with an accident. 2017, Sunday afternoon, I'm standing still on my home mountain ski slope. My home mountains, I'm a good skier, it's where I grew up skiing. I was standing still with that helmet on, and I slipped backwards. The back of my head hit something, whether it was just ice or rock or tree, I don't know. But I hit hard. And then I stood up and I joined my family down the slope. We took another run and we got in the car and we drove home. 2.5 hours back to Massachusetts. My husband and I made a deal. If I puke on the way down, we'll go straight to the ER. I didn't, so we didn't. This obviously is not the way to treat a concussion, but we were operating on 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old information. But I went on with my life because the kids had to get home. They had to do their homework. Over the week, though, I started to feel pretty bad, and my symptoms bloomed slowly, which is actually normal in women. I started to get light sensitivity and noise sensitivity, a headache, nausea. I had balance problems. I couldn't read or write. I felt like I had fire in my veins. I didn't understand what was happening with me. And finally, on the Thursday, I went to my doctor, and I'm 5'10". My doctor is barely 5 feet, and she had me walk across the room, and I nearly crushed this small woman. Turns out I had balance problems too. She, operating again on ancient information, told me to just go home and rest. My concussion would heal in time. This again is outdated advice. When you get a concussion, I'm preaching to the converted here, but when you get a concussion, get checked immediately and get rest for 3 days only. Then get light exercise and then get quickly into concussion-specific treatment. Okay, onward. I lived on. We lived in the dark. I had noise sensitivity and light sensitivity so terribly. I lived with a hat and sunglasses in the house for months and months and months. And I kept emailing and she kept saying, just rest. It'll heal on its own. And I trusted her because I had to, because I had a brain injury and I didn't know what was happening. This is March. My daughter and I had just been to CVS to buy stage makeup for her theater production. And as we tried to find the right foundation and the right eyeliner for the first time for her, I absolutely froze in the aisle of CVS. My feet became leaden. I became scared and overwhelmed, and I burst into tears. My poor girl. Here we are with some hot cocoa, trying to make a bad situation better. Here we are in April, Santa Fe, New Mexico, on horseback with a concussion because I'm a mother. My family needed me to be okay and to continue on with our life. I was a wreck, but there I am on horseback, doing my best. May, after the January concussion, my husband's and my 50th birthday, 10 p.m. All I wanted was for these people to get out of my kitchen. 10 p.m. I'm wearing those sunglasses and a little dress. I was dying. All I wanted was for them to leave. This is not abnormal for women. Women tend to get concussions very differently from men. We get a greater number of concussions than men do because our necks are not as strong, and certain times during the month or in menopause, there we have a decrease in our progesterone, which then indicates a negative, a worse outcome for our concussions. We experience a greater number of symptoms for a longer time, and here's the kicker. We have a harder time accessing care. We do. Why is that? Well, we're not children who have schools watching out for us or coaches watching out for us. We're not men who have corporations maybe needing us to get back, some of us. I was a self-employed, middle-aged woman. I was sidelined. I was forgotten. I just stayed in my home. Now, I have all the privileges in the world of education and resources and health insurance and financial stability and stable housing, and I couldn't access care. I was told by my doctor still to heal in time. And this is a classic concussion experience for some women. We are ignored and we are sidelined. And think about it. As women, we are wives, we are mothers, we are running households, running businesses, we are getting kids to the doctors, sports practices, the stage makeup, family life doesn't stop. Plus the emotional piece. We are holding our families together. What is the impact on children? Our children, when the moms, what is it like for the kids to live with a mom that's concussed for an extended period of time? What is the impact on children and families? When a mom's untreated concussion goes on, like mine did, for months, and you'll see years. Pink Concussions is an incredible organization gathering the scientists doing research on women's concussions, and I am so grateful to their work. Okay, here we go, back to my story. July, drop off at summer camp. Note my sunglasses and hat still. Imagine the toll it took on me, someone who could not read. What was it like to pack up 2 children for summer camp? It was a complete and utter blur. Because here's the thing. I lived my life those 6 months. I was busy. I was functioning-ish. But this is where I always longed to be on the couch in a hat and sunglasses underneath my son's Star Wars blanket. There it was dark, it was quiet, it was safe. Whenever I went out in the world, this is where I wished I were. Whenever I was doing the laundry or cooking a meal, this is where I wish I could be. But this isolation also took a huge toll. Under that blanket, I would ruminate. Am I crazy? My doctor told me I'm going to be okay. I'm not. We're 6 months in. There's nothing right here. Do I have a tumor growing? Is this early onset Alzheimer's? I was depressed and scared. And over time, the depression grew into suicidal ideation. It was terrifying. With this family, with this life I lived, it was comfortable underneath that blanket and terrifying at the same time. Because what happens to us when we are this impaired? We lose so much of our lives. We lose all of our normal activities. I wasn't going to exercise with my friends in a group. I couldn't go to church. The sopranos and the organs just, couldn't take it. I couldn't go to a party. A group of people made me burst into tears. I was very limited in how I went to my kids' sporting events or to their theater events. I remember going to one of those big basketball places and just a wreck with sunglasses, hat, earplugs, and like this. It was just, everything was so difficult. And when I did go out, as I said, I was weird. I was wearing that weird getup and always on the verge of tears. So I lost all of the normal support that I live in my everyday life. I lost the joy and the friendship and the identity of being a person out and about in the world, doing my normal life. And I know you experienced that too. Withdrawing into our homes is so painful. And yet we need to do it to some degree. Because everyone else around you, they're going on with their lives. And that hurts. My exercise classes were really, really important to me. For 3 or 4 years, I've been exercising in a group 3 doors down here of women from 9 a.m. Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. But when my concussion happened, obviously I couldn't do that, be in a group of chatting women. And I did have the balance problems and everything. But what I started to do is this. On Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m., I would sit there in my hat and sunglasses and peek out that window to that street at 10 a.m. and wait and watch the caravan of minivans go. The minivans leaving our exercise class that I had been a part of for 3 straight years. Nobody stopped. Nobody knocked on my door. Nobody checked on me. It had been 8, 9, 10 months, and I felt forgotten and hurt and angry, abandoned, and deeply, deeply lonely. Even though being with people was too stimulating and draining, I was so lonely. It was an impossible situation. Dr. Vivek Murthy just put out the 2002 loneliness report. And loneliness, like I experienced, as you may experience, is so toxic. It gives us a 29%, per this report, a 29% increase for the risk of heart disease, 32% risk of stroke, 50% risk of developing dementia in older adults, 60% risk of premature death. Feeling isolated increases the inflammation in our bodies, which then leads to a whole host of chronic illnesses. Then there's the mental health challenges, and that I really relate to. Loneliness doubles the risk of depression. Chronic loneliness and social isolation can increase the risk of dementia in older adults, and this I get, increases the risk of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicidality. Loneliness is serious stuff. with enormous physical and mental health consequences. And I lived this, and maybe you are too. So for me, as an extrovert, it was insidious. I was busy normally in my job. I was busy in my community volunteering. I was busy in my kids' schools. I was in and out and about, seeing people happy, exercising with my friends, going to the beach. To lose all that was devastating. I was alone and in my head. I was underneath that blanket. I was worrying so deeply about what was wrong with me and all of the things I and my family were missing out on. A bitterness also came over me. This person's letting me down. That person's letting me down. It was really, really hard. But here's the thing. I'm a therapist. I'm married to a therapist. I had a psychoanalyst to talk to. I had all of this psychological support and education and a personal experience with therapy. And I couldn't articulate what I was feeling for myself. And I could not advocate for my health because I had a brain injury. And that is the madness of having a brain injury. I couldn't do or be who I normally was. It was devastating. Devastating. This has been the hardest experience of my life. And my family and I have had hard times before. As you can see here, when my kids were very little, I had stage 3 breast cancer. It was hard and it was scary. But here's the difference. In the breast cancer world, you go to the doctor frequently. You are on a clear treatment path. You have a plan. I had 18 rounds of chemotherapy. That was hard. But I could count it down. 18 rounds of chemo, 17 rounds, 16 rounds. We had an end date. My cancer treatment was 11 and a half long months. But it was over after 11 and a half years. And we had cultural support. October, we just got through breast cancer month. That stupid pink ribbon is everywhere. The NFL wears pink socks. It's on the Campbell soup label. Everybody knows about breast cancer. Nobody knows about what we go through with brain injury. So we've had hard times, as you can see with those little sweet babies. This was harder on us. I didn't know if I was going to live or die with cancer, but I knew my treatment was going to be over. The endlessness and the ambiguousness of my brain injury is what made it so, so difficult. Okay, onward. We trudged on. Over time, I had small little healings. I relied a little less on the sunglasses and the hat. I could start sorting the laundry a little bit. We got through the holidays. There were not huge improvements, but we were happy, and my doctor was still basically saying, you should be okay by now. So I wasn't getting any support. And again, brain injury. I'm no shrinking violet. I couldn't figure it out myself, and I couldn't ask for what I wanted. So it's this impossible situation. But we trudged on with small healings and took them all, took all the little victories that just sort of magically happened. And then the next March, 14 months later, I wanted to be a good mom. So I went out with my son and my husband to play a little bit of basketball. Oops. The game was called Knockout, and guess who got knocked in the head by a basketball? And this time we were better. We went straight to the emergency room. The ER doc said, you've got a concussion and go get some physical therapy. I said, okay, great, I can do something. I went to get physical therapy. I found out a couple of years later that I was actually treated for vertigo. But at the time, I didn't know. I took what I got. So we started living. I started getting a little better and a little better. So we lived a little more month by month. And I was grateful for the support I got from that physical therapist. I had nothing to compare it to. And as I said, we started living more, and there we are camping. And that night at the camping, that was August. Now, this is 18 months after the fall at the skiway. I remember saying to my kids, "God, guys, this has been so weird for you. You've been so kind and so patient. I keep showing up with sunglasses, and, it's just weird. I don't read, I don't write. You're just so used to a highly verbal graham cracker." What? We'd been making s'mores. And at nighttime, that's what my brain did. I was a highly verbal mother, not a highly verbal graham cracker. My kids still laugh about this at the time. At the time, it was a little bit sad. But as you can see, that's a smile, different from the smile with the cocoa or on the horseback. That's a genuine smile there camping. So I started to feel better. And as I started to feel better, that bitterness I felt, that started to wane. And I started to notice there were unexpected angels in my life, the people who were showing up in my life. And guess what? It wasn't the moms who were busy with the kids and the sports and the schools. It was the church ladies. The church ladies who are good at the cards and who are good at the visits and who are good at the cookies on the front porch and checking in. But I'm going to turn this question to you. Who is showing up in your life right now? Who checks in with you? Who helps you? Who takes the time? Who remembers you? And who reaches out to you even when you can't do your part of the relationship? Those are your unexpected angels. And I hope you can appreciate them. They're probably not who you expect. But start appreciating, acknowledging, embracing them, who is actually showing up in your life. So exactly 2 years after my fall, again, I've had physical therapy for vertigo at this point. I started, because I thought that was as good as I was going to get, and I just had to figure it out. I started to work on my reading, and it took me 6 weeks to read my 12-year-old son's novel, but I did it. Now, I'm someone who reads 30, 40, 50 novels a year, so for 6 weeks to read a book, that was tough, but I was doing it. And the more I read, the more I felt like myself, and that felt so good. So I started getting a little bit involved with my church again, and I got involved with our search committee, where we had to read these monster 17-page resumes. And all of a sudden, after reading 2 or 3, all of my symptoms, light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, no balance, headaches, verbal problems, memory problems, I was a wreck, and I had done nothing. There was no hit in the head. Nothing had happened to me except reading these resumes, and it was scary and it was bizarre, and I was feeling healthy enough that I could finally go, okay, doctor, I need something now. I need something now. And I got a referral to a Mass General neurologist, and the next day I phoned them, and they said, we just got a cancellation. Can you be here in 3 hours? Yes, we can. That day, I learned from that neurologist after the exam, hey, your brain's okay. What? My brain's okay? But what you do have, he says, is PTSD. And there are other things wrong with you too that we can treat. What? Stunning. My eyes were not working together for 2.5 years, and they could have been fixed. I still had balance problems. but my brain was okay. This was all so bizarre. I was referred to physical therapy, and I discovered the balance problems. I still had neck problems, and my eyes were screwy. So luckily, I found there was a physical therapist in my small town who specialized in concussion, but because I'd been under my blanket for 2.5 years, never knew this, I got to her, and we started working on that, and that was incredible. I can't believe I had problems for 2.5 years unaddressed. But the real change for me was cognitive rehab with a speech language pathologist. I went in and got testing, and I learned I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't stupid, and I didn't have early onset Alzheimer's or a tumor. All things I worried about when I was underneath the Star Wars blanket. But these are the things I ruminated about for years and years. The terror was lifted because we found out through the testing that I had these real problems for 2.5 years unaddressed. They were measurable, they could be fixed. I cried and I cried and I cried in this young woman's office. She was confident she could get me to a different place. She was young and she was single, and she was amazed at what I was doing with my concussion symptoms. I was a working mom with persistent concussion symptoms, breakfast for the kids, walk the dog, 2 client sessions, 3 loads of laundry, drive the kids to the beach, drive to Boston for my appointment with her, confirm that my friend could pick up my kids, remind the kids to go to babysitting and when to get to the rehearsal, remember to swing by the grocery to pick up bananas and ketchup, come home, walk the dog, make dinner, pick up my son from rehearsal, sort and fold the laundry with my husband, send Zoom links to my client the next day, collapse in bed, and do it again. That was a lot, but it's also a normal day for a mother and also a normal day for a concussed mother. What I learned from my SLP is something I still do to this day. I did it in preparation for this. I make lists. I make a list for myself. This is something you can start doing. Make a list for yourself of all the things that need to be done, and then make a list for your family. I made a list for my kids that included things like they were early teens at this point. Make your bed, make your lunch for the beach, pack the beach stuff, go to babysitting at 3:30, go to rehearsal at 4. Why would I do that? Because it was a way for me to not carry the cognitive load all day of what they needed to do. And it was a way for me to not answer their questions all day long. What do I need to do? Look at the list. What time do you need to go? Look at the list. What time am I babysitting? Look at the list. Trying to offload some of the cognitive load. And that really worked. And I do this for myself every single day. I put what time I had to get online for this was on my list today. What time I had to get the dog in the backyard so he wouldn't disturb us was on my list for today. So I arranged this in the morning and as my day went on, just so I don't have to carry things in my working memory. This is a really, really effective strategy for us. Leaving lists on the kitchen counter for your family so you don't have to carry the cognitive load. This is a way to support yourself and get support from your family. Another thing I learned from the SLP, laundry is torture. I didn't take it into account that you had to gather the laundry, carry it to the basement, put a load in, remember to turn it from the washer to the dryer, repeat that 2 times, bring the clothes upstairs, sort between the 4 people, which is the worst part of any bit of laundry for us with concussions. The cognitive effort it takes to determine this light gray t-shirt from that light gray t-shirt and who it belongs to, just not worth the effort. I I didn't, until she walked me through it, understand laundry as the physical and cognitive toll it took on me and had been taking for years. It is a huge drain on us. And I learned about, from a support group, I learned about something called Parkwood points. And it's a point system. If you don't know about it, it can be very effective for some of us. Say you have 20 points in a day of your energy. And when I was really impaired, for me to do 3 loads of laundry, that would have been 8 points in my entire day. So I need to do fewer of other things. It's just a way to balance your events and how much you actually do in one day. So, but until I learned this, I didn't understand the toll laundry was taking on me. And then I understood. So my suggestion for all of us, don't sort the laundry. Folding, no problem. Putting away, not so bad, but sorting is unnecessary brain drain. My last little tip is grocery shopping. For years, I was abandoning the carts. I would just get halfway through my shopping and I would burst into tears and flee the grocery store, just overstimulated and miserable. And in cognitive rehab, I learned that I was wildly overstimulated in the grocery store with the overhead lights, the checkerboard black and white floor, the 50,000 aisles whizzing by me, all the while trying to remember what we needed. So in cognitive rehab, her suggestion was to take a friend along, have the friend follow me through my regular route, have the friend list what I'm buying by aisle, take notes, type up the list, and print out a bunch. I have done this now for 4 years. I have a killer grocery list. When I go to checkout, people envy it because I do my route. It takes very little cognitive toll on me anymore. So bring a friend one time, have them do that work for you, and then just circle what you need as the week go by. It's awesome. But really, in cognitive rehab, one of the most important things I learned was how to calm my nervous system. Because going to the grocery store, all the wild overstimulation, that's what we have to do. That's the PTSD piece that we have to work on. And for me, she had me work in a coloring book for 15 minutes a day. 5 times a day for 15 minutes a day, I would just paint the circles. And I felt my cortisol, I felt my stress seeping out of my body. And the more art I did, along with more physical therapy and cognitive rehab, the more calmer I felt, the healthier and happier and more stable I became. It was all working together, the PT, the cognitive rehab, and for me, daily art. And for the first time, I was seeing real progress. And you can see here that I went from a coloring book to messing around independently with watercolors in the stripes, and then starting to do little displays and little florals. And I got so excited that, oh my God, I'm out from under the blanket and I think I'm learning again. I wanted to share this because my concussion experience was so grim and so isolated and so busy, and I was feeling better, and that with art and with treatment, I was healing. And I wanted to share the news. I didn't know who I wanted to share with, but I wanted to share the news with people who would get it. And I went and looked on Facebook, and just all those words and ads and people and blah, too busy an interface. And so someone said, why don't you try Instagram? So I went onto Instagram and I posted these paintings, from the coloring books to the watercolors. And I did it to inspire hope that others too can start healing from concussion, that others have been living underneath the blanket for years as I had, could see progress can be made, that healing can happen. But what I discovered on Instagram is a whole world of concussion recovery, an amazing community of people who have knowledge and who will help. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I started my Instagram account, and I started sending out pieces of art like this. Keep going art, I call it. concussion sufferers, survivors all over the world. I was so lonely underneath that blanket, and if some random person in Massachusetts thought I was worthy of receiving a piece of art, I thought that might make me feel good. Someone who got the isolation and loneliness. And that's what I do. I send them out to people all over the world. And when I meet with them on Zoom, just to say hi, I can see my little painting in the background. I do this to help with the loneliness, which I suffered from so terribly. And I'm happy to send one to you too. Just follow me on Instagram. I'm Concussion Recovery Art, and it's really my pleasure. You can see that this has made an impact on some of these people. Here's my account. I think that was from last spring, some examples of my art. And I keep posting all of my progress in painting and in art because I think it's important. I'm so excited that my brain can learn again. I'm so excited that I can read, I can learn, I can be excited, I can go to a class with people, I can stand being around people, I can enjoy a group. I think it's important to keep spreading the word that healing happens. And when I take an art class and I see myself learn new skills as an artist, that's neuroplasticity. That is my brain healing itself. And that's why I keep showing my art. Because remember, I started with coloring books as physical therapy. And tonight I get to go to a drawing faces class. So I'm still here 3 years later, always learning. And I hope that still inspires people that healing can happen. So Instagram has been a game changer in my concussion recovery. And I'd like to show you today on how it can be for you too. I've made connections and friends on Instagram. I have found work as a brain injury art teacher. I have sold art. I have found speaking engagements like this one, thanks BIA USA. I have become a concussion activist, and there are so many of us out there on Instagram. But it can be intimidating. How do you connect with others? I was older on Instagram. How do you do this? It's all the young kids. I'm going to show you how, because there's a wonderful world of concussion recovery just waiting for you to join us. And here's how. First of all, get someone to set up your account. You don't need to do it. You can use your name, don't use a name, doesn't matter. Get someone who knows it to help you follow these hashtags. Oh goodness, my battery's running low. That's crazy. Hang on. Anyway, let's see how we can do. Follow these hashtags. And if you do, you'll be fed into these accounts. So concussion recovery is a big one. And this is a great way to start. There are so many concussion focused accounts out there. If you just put @concussion in, and you're going to find page after page after page of us there. First day, I would suggest just following one or two and see if you like them, see if it jives, and then put your phone down and rest. There's one woman who's a gym teacher in Massachusetts, and she is so much fun the way she does her concussion recovery. There's a dad in New Zealand who suffered with chronic concussion, and we have watched him go from being a stay-at-home dad taking care of his kids because of his brain injury to going from now being a chief operating officer at a company, but doing it in an authentic way and going through the interview process. There's a physical therapist who has a concussion. There's a SLP who's gone through concussion recovery. As you're following along, put in, friends who are watching, put in accounts that you find helpful to share with people. And also follow the BIA USA and follow your state's Brain Injury Association. Even on Instagram, you'll find people who become, over the years, dear friends. My concussion buddies have had an enormous impact on my recovery. Perfect strangers on Instagram, I feel like, are my concussion buddies, as they share their struggles, and their successes, they inform me and they boost me as well. I think of one friend, Allie, who shared her process of finally, after years of concussion recovery, attending her family's 4th of July celebration. She hadn't been able to attend in years, but the week before, she talked about all the planning she was doing, all the strategies she was going to employ, and all the backup plans she had, and how she enjoyed. And then we got the after effect, the post-game analysis, and how she loved being with her family for at least a finite amount of time, and how it was a good 4th of July. That's a joy, and that made my day, my world happy, and made me realize if I employ strategies, I can live more too. I learned on Instagram things like eye cupping in the bathroom stall when you're feeling overwhelmed. I learned things on Instagram like 5-fingered breathing to calm the nervous system, like this. No one was teaching me these things. And I use this all the time when I can feel my nervous system flaring. I learned this on Instagram. There's a physical therapist who got hit by a car, I think, years ago and is struggling in her recovery. She is thrilling to watch her do the ups and downs that we all do. There's a friend in Calgary, Canada, who shares her experience with fighting the health insurance system and her wins as well, and what's working with her diet and exercise. You will create, with a tiny bit of effort, a tribe that surrounds you, people that you see yourself in the way I think you're seeing yourself in my story. You've heard my story today, but I know you've seen part of yourself in me too. You can find so much more of that on Instagram. People also share the frustrations, but not always in the dark way. My dear friend, Concussion Network, she put up a post a few months ago, and it goes like this: tell me you have a concussion without telling me you have a concussion. And here are some of the answers. Mine was, it's that blank stare when more than one person is talking to me at a time. Another person's answer was, when someone asks me to make a decision in a loud place and I start crying. Another said, why is my phone beeping? Oh, look, I set an alarm. Now, what's that alarm for? Or, it's so bright, I need my sunglasses. Where are they? Oh, they're on already. And the last one, why is everything suddenly so noisy, bright, off kilter, and exhausting? I felt myself into every one of those situations just from a little Instagram post. So connect with people. I've had a Goldilocks experience with support groups, but support groups have changed everything for me. Go on Instagram and put the hashtag concussion support groups. I spent a few months at the Concussion Canada McGill support group. I spent a couple times at the Brain Injury Massachusetts. I spent a couple times at Concussion Foundation, and I found my home with Concussion Network, which is run as a volunteer by a friend of mine. And my experience in this support group, where's it going? Hold on. Changed everything. Being in a support group for me with women who understood me emotionally and physically changed everything. From them, I learned treatments to try, things to buy. People were buying these loop earplugs. I had never heard of them. But most importantly, the connection, the friendship, the relationship. And of course, we met online on Zoom, and we stayed in touch through Instagram and supported each other throughout our weeks. In this group, what I noticed in every support group was this. We would attend, it would be an intense emotional hour of just connection. And then a lot of people would say, wow, this was so intense, or I'm really tired after this, I'm gonna go nap. Here's what I had to do. This is what I learned. that moms don't nap after group. My groups would end at 2. I would get in the car and pick up kids from school, and my afternoon would begin with them. So what we figured out is that we needed a concussed moms group. And that helped everything. My friend Concussion Network started this group for us. She saw the need and she filled it. And eventually she asked me to take over. And here we are. I have permission from all these women to share their photos. And here we are. We meet once a month, and babies, moms with babies to moms with kids in their late 20s attend. We have a certain level of understanding with each other. There's another meeting. It's a community of moms. There's empathy, there's understanding. And, you know, we say things like, oh, my kid just bonked my head by mistake. And we all get that panicky feeling. One of us gets a panicky feeling. We all rush in to help and say, breathe, breathe, breathe. It's all going to be okay. Or we talk about the impact of our concussions on our sex lives and in our marriages. It's just a very open, compassionate, of course, like any support group. But we also understand the demands of motherhood and concussion. And it really just has made all the difference for a lot of us. This group is monthly, the first Thursdays of every month. It is administered by Concussion Legacy Foundation. I'm the facilitator of it. And I wanted to let you know, Concussion Legacy Foundation also has 5 support groups, monthly support groups for PCS patients and for their caregivers. They also offer a one-on-one peer support. I'm also a concussion mentor to women. So you can contact them, contact their helpline. It's a great resource for you. But what we all really need are concussion buddies. You will find them on Instagram, and hopefully you'll find them in support groups. But here's how to make concussion buddies online on Instagram. First, you go to @concussion, whatever, and you find a few accounts that resonate and vibe with you, people that feel right. And then just start commenting. Just be friendly. If you see them have a success, say, way to go, or I'm happy for you. You're doing so great. What an awesome thing you did. Be friendly, support. And then as you get to know this person and you see their life taking place on Instagram, give specific supportive feedback. Good for you for taking care of yourself. Or if someone, I'm sorry you're having a rough day, I get it. And that's all you need to say. You don't need to say, go into your stuff. You're in support mode. Or even more specific, wow, you walked 20 minutes last week and 30 this week? That's a win. I'm celebrating you. Imagine what that would be like to receive that support and feedback from someone you don't know on Instagram, who sees you, who sees your suffering, who sees your wins, who feels you in their life. What's really important, though, is what you put out there will come back to you. If you are negative and bitter and nasty, or if you're having a really rough day and a bad mood, maybe that's not a good day to post things. Maybe it's just a good day to observe. I once put a comment on the BIA Instagram talking about my experience, and the feedback I got from one person was, who must have been in a dark, dark place, was, at least you haven't lost everything like I have. Now, that happened months ago, and I still remember it, and that hurt. That person was clearly in a bad place. Needless to say, we're not Instagram buddies. I don't need that in my life. I don't want it. So be careful. What I'm saying ultimately here is be mindful of what you put out and be careful of who you let in. My Instagram feed, oh, I love it. It's a source of joy and happiness. It's all concussion and art. Concussion and art. It's a place of happiness and joy, because in our concussed lives, that is what we need. So make your Instagram something that makes you happy. So we're almost done here, friends. Here are the takeaways from this speech, this presentation. Please don't sort the laundry. Don't waste your beautiful, precious brain cognitive load on that. Think about leaving to-do lists on your kitchen island, one for you and one for your family, so that your working memory doesn't have to overwork. When your kids or your husband ask you a question about what's happening later tonight, look at the list, look at the list, look at the list. Have a friend follow you in the grocery store and make your grocery list. And then on Instagram, follow #concussion recovery, follow the @concussion accounts. Take baby steps into that world, because there is a world of support waiting for you. Go gently, go slowly, but we are here. We all need each other. We need our tribe. And finally, find a support group. If you are feeling alone in your concussion recovery, join a group. You will feel seen, you will feel understood, you will learn. And realize it takes time. I had the Goldilocks experience of trying to find my place. The groups weren't quite right. So be patient. But concussion support groups work best when you attend, and you attend regularly, and you give feedback and you participate. And support groups can change your feelings of isolation and loneliness. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest. I am sorry we are all in this world we do not choose, we do not want. I'm also happy we're in it together, because together we can get through it. Alone, it is too difficult and it is dangerous. So come join up, sign up, participate in the world that is here. There are resources. There are resources. Turn to your Brain Injury Association for help. Turn to Instagram. Turn to people who live this life, because we need each other. That's what gets us through. I appreciate you so much. And on the next slide is some information on how you can get help from the Brain Injury Association of the USA. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.